Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome back to Venting with Us. Woo! Whoa. Okay. If you guys are not ready, just you know what? I'm not even going to be one of those people that is like, oh, you can't be that last minute shopper. No, no, no. We have 5 days left until Christmas. And as you see, I am in my Christmas gear. I felt like I just got to keep it, keep the vibe. I got to keep the vibe up. So, but yes, we have 5 days left of Christmas. I am not going to be one of those people that says, if you haven't done your Christmas shopping, oh my God, what do you know? You know what? Years ago, I was fine. I would do my shopping, my Christmas, and people are going to think that I'm nuts. And that's perfectly fine. We already know that I am, sort of, kind of. I would do all my Christmas shopping the day before. And it was fine. It was fine. But, yeah, no, I literally did all of my shopping the day before. And when I couldn't find the gift that I actually wanted, I don't know. In my mind, I'm so good at gifting. I'm a good gifter, by the way, really good. And I think the reason why I'm a good gifter and the secret to being a good gifter is listening to people when they talk. And sometimes they'll make little comments of, yeah, I wish I had this, or I'm this type of person, or I like this. And, I kind of hold that in a little storage bin in the back of my head that I have. And I make a list of all the things. And then when, either the birthday comes around or Christmas comes around or, whatever, it's an opportunity to be like, okay, I remember this conversation and this, and this, and this, and this, and here's the list. And, that's what makes you a good gifter. Now I've had exes where it's like, why can't you just get this right? I've been talking about this the whole entire, year, but I've learned that men just don't listen. And that's okay. But, that's the secret, guys, of being a good gifter. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive things, you gift from the heart, because trust me, I could be like, I wish I had a whole royalty of diamonds, and it is what it is. What am I going to do with all these diamonds? I can't walk out in the street with diamonds, and I did receive a lot of gifts this week. And some people are pissed off at me that I did not open it. And I'm like, no, I'm putting it underneath my tree. So that way on Christmas, while I'm getting drunk and cooking, I'll then open it. But I get it because you want to see the person's face reaction. But no, I truly do believe in opening my gift on Christmas. I am one of those. So... Sorry, but yes, if you guys still have not gotten your Christmas list done, don't worry. You still have time. You have 5 days left. But I am going to warn you, it feels like it's going in a blaze. And before we know it, we're going to be in 2026. So I'm hoping that by the end, I have 5 days, but I have a week. I'm hoping that before the end of this year, more amazing doors continue to open. So that's what I was hoping for 2025. If not, we'll roll into 2026 and we'll just manifest it out there again. All right, guys. So last week's episode, by the way, had a whole bunch of people reach out to me that it was probably one of the best in a really long time. I was like, oh, okay, finally I'm catching up. Episodes that I've done in a really long time. So thank you guys for that. I was going to go into a whole different topic, being that it was, we're 5 days away from Christmas. I was going to talk about stepmothers and gifting today, but as a fan, and for those who have unfortunately had to suffer through this tragedy that happened this week, it would not do me justice if I did not speak about Rob Reiner and his beautiful wife, Michelle, who on December 14th were murdered. It's so crazy for me because I'm such a huge fan of his work. To know that we lost such an amazing, brilliant, loving, who brought joy, who brought laughter, happiness into the world. Whether if you disagreed with his politics or not, I think with politics, I think you have to form your own opinion. And that's the beautiful thing about having a voice and having your own opinion. And whether, he was a very strong liberal activist. But, it's very important to speak your own opinion and have your own opinion. You don't have to, I always say you don't have to agree with someone on their views. That's the beautiful part of a free world, quote unquote. But, as we all know, on December 14th, Renner and his wife, Michelle, were found stabbed to death in their LA home. And they were actually found by their daughter when she came home. Their son, Nick, has been charged with 2 counts of murder of the first degree. And it's really important to discuss about mental illness and drug abuse and how serious this really is, because you can have wealth and all of the connections in the world, but mental illness and drug abuse is a very, very serious thing. And I don't believe that Rob Reiner did anything that could have been different to help his son. When people are very abusive on drugs and they have an issue, unfortunately, it's the drug that takes over them. So there is no rhyme or reason. We're really not going to know specifically what occurred. There has been talks of a dispute at O'Connor's Christmas party. Once more detail comes out, I will be revisiting the Rob Reiner story again. I feel terrible for his family, his daughter. This is, to find your parents that way is I can only imagine what she's going through right now. So, but for those who do not know who Rob Reiner is, let me just give you a synopsis of who he was. Rob Reiner was an American filmmaker and actor. He directed a series of acclaimed American studio films across multiple genres. He received numerous accolades, including winning 2 Primetime Emmy Awards and a Hugo Award, as well as nominations for an Academy Award, BAFTA Award, and a Golden Globe Award. Renner was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1999, which actually sits right next to his father, Carl Reiner. And for those who do not know who Carl Reiner is, he is the man behind the Dick Van Dyke Show. Whether if you watch the show or not, you know the Dick Van Dyke Show. And it was a phenomenal show for so many years. I highly recommend, watching 1 or 2 episodes of it just to get a feel of it. Rob was famously known for playing Meathead, aka Mike, in the CBS sitcom All in the Family. Now, everybody knows who, you know, All in the Family was. That was such a great show. It touched so many different topics in a time where most people did not want to touch sitcoms. You know, sitcoms didn't want to touch certain topics. Um, I I really really was a fan of that show. So that's the first thing that I thought of when I heard about the news. Right, and again, it's just I'm in shock still about this loss, because it's just something that, you know, was not um it's not like something that you saw coming. It's something that was like, wait a minute, are you sure that this story is true? You know, it was kind of that kind of moment when I first saw the headlines on this. But with that role and All of the Family, he actually ended up earning 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor. He would go on to do other shows, but he also decided that around that time he also wanted to direct films. And, you know, he created one of the most brilliant films in the industry. What people don't know is that Reiner actually was born in New York. He grew up in the Bronx, right near the Grand Concourse, which is so close to where I lived growing up in the Bronx. And I love his love story with Penny Marshall. He actually lived right across the street from her house. And for those who do not know who Penny Marshall is, she's another brilliant director slash actress. And you probably know her well for Laverne and Shirley, or for A League of Their Own with Rosie O'Donnell, and of course Madonna, the living legend. But I remember watching the first movie that I watched with Rob Reiner that actually, it changed my life, is what I like to say. And there's a lot of few movies where I can actually say that. There was something about this film that I kept going. I remember, you know, going back to it and going back to it, and I remember it staying in me. And when I got older to actually understand more of it, and going more into being an actor, I learned more about the business and behind the films and everything. But Spinal Tap, which is about a metal band trying to get another hit. For those that don't know, that's, first of all, a phenomenal movie. And what intrigued me so much about that film was the fact that there was no script. It was all improv. And the brilliant thing about Rob Reiner is that he always did things that were so different and so out of the box, which made him so successful to all of his films. And if you ever notice, in any film that he's ever done, there's always that one great punchline in every single film. And for Spinal Tap, for me, knowing that whole film, there was no script, and the actors were so creative, and he was not afraid to allow the actors to be free and improv those scenes, is kind of why I love doing the in-person say blah, blah, blah. There we go. And every episode, I think I've nailed with messing up one word. In person. Oh my God, I can't say it. It's always going to be one word every single episode. I should do like a clip of every single word that I always mess up on. It would be probably classic. Impersonations. There we go. I really do think that that's why I went more into that. Because it gives you more of the freedom of, yes, you're impersonating that scene or that show or whatever it is that I'm doing, but the creativity of actually forming the lineup to it, whether if it's exaggerated or if it's serious or, thinking of how I can make it different where it's not similar is why I wanted to go into that direction so much, because nobody's doing it. You have people that do the lip sync, but they're not creating it in such a formative way. So with Spinal Tap, the fact that was all improv, and there was no script, and they kind of had to just be punchy, and knowing how to have that comedic timing was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant for me to watch it and know that, how do they do that? How do they know how to be funny and when you just have it, you have it. It's not something that you can go to school to learn to be funny. Somebody can give you a script and you can be funny in that way, but that talent, that rawness of that comedic timing. And I've had, acting coaches tell me like, comedy is extremely hard. You got to have timing. And they would always try to direct me into a different kind of like direction. And it always ended up coming back to comedy. And I knew that that's exactly where I wanted to be. And people would tell me all the time, like, oh my God, you're funny. And I'm like, oh no, but you kind of just know. It's like, for example, if you want to be a doctor, you're going to be a great doctor because you just feel it. If you want to be, I don't know, a driver, and that's your passion, then that's what you're supposed to. I think we're all born with it, that feeling, that knowing of what is going to attract somebody. And for Rob Reiner, the countless movies that he directed and created, he just knew what was going to hit, what specific thing would catch somebody's eye. And, and I'll give you a perfect example, like the movie When Harry Met Sally. The scene where Meg Ryan has this orgasmic moment and she's like, yes. And then she eats the pie and then it cuts off to the woman. And the waiter comes up to her and she's like, I'll have whatever she's having. Well, that scene, Rob Reiner, I remember Rob Reiner saying, he's like, well, that my mother used to say that all the time. So that's where that little punchline, that moment came from. And I love that. And if you, like I said, if you go into every single one of his films, there's always that one little thing that's going to attract somebody, that's going to pull you in. The infamous A Few Good Men, that famous scene with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in the court scene where he's like, I demand the truth. And Jack Nicholson says to him, he's like, well, you can't handle the truth. that moment right there is that one moment where you were sucked in, and it was just memorable. And for every director, they're always looking for that little cherry on top, where to keep the art from growing. And I love that about him. I love that about his films. And just to give you kind of an idea of all of the movies that he created that most people probably don't know is The Sure Thing, Stand By Me, which I absolutely love, The Princess Bride. And just a little backstory on the Princess Bride. He actually created that movie when he got divorced with Penny Marshall, and he was kind of like a lost puppy. And shortly after that, he ended up meeting his wife, Michelle, on the set of Harry Met Sally. She was a photographer. And something I should have mentioned before, too, when Harry Met Sally, that ending was completely different. But when he met his wife, he ended up changing it because of her. So it's the ending now, the famous ending that you see now, and that's all because his wife inspired him to change that ending. See, I love stuff like that. I love learning and knowing. It's not just about the films. It's the story behind the creativity and what led up to it. But let me go on. The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, The American President, which is another phenomenal movie. This is when he was getting more into politics around that time. Sleepless in Seattle, Bullets Over Broadway, The First Wives Club, which everybody knows is probably one of my favorite movies. I've done the impersonations on my TikTok and on my YouTube with that one many times. Primary Colors, The Wolf of Wall Street, which we all kind of know. I have a close kind of connection with that movie. With the house, I would like to say. If you guys don't know the story, I'll get into that story one time, maybe down the road. And then he was also the co-founder of the Castle Rock Entertainment. You know, this is a sad time. I think the one thing that he always tried to prove that's been said is that he always wanted to make his father proud, and how he could be somewhat like his father, because he would always have people constantly saying, "Oh my God, I love your dad. He's just the sweetest person. He's so remarkable." And Rob Reiner did say in an interview, he's like, I don't know how I can compete with that. And I remember hearing that, and I said, my God, I think that that's probably how his son must have felt, Nick Renner. They did end up doing a film about Nick's drug abuse. I think it was probably about maybe 10 years ago. I might be off, like 8-10 years ago. I believe it's called something with Charlie. But it did show a lot of, explaining Nick's abuse to drugs and his mental state and his connection with his father. And in some ways, when you have a successful father or mother or something, and we've seen it on and on, especially with like Mommy Dearest or Betty Davis's daughter, and them explaining how their childhood was. You do kind of feel a little bit, I wouldn't know personally, but that has to feel like, my God, how can I be like this? And allegedly, Tracy Renner did come out and say that, her brother Nick had always aspired to be like a successful director, but he did not have that genius, that spark, that imaginary process like her dad. And that probably drove him crazy. I can only imagine if maybe people were out there and he wasn't as successful and he was trying to get his foot in the door. People saying, oh, you're not like your dad, but you have the creme de la creme, or being compared to your dad, that it's not going to work. It's never going to be a Renner project. Who knows? Again, there's so much more information that has to come out on this that we don't know about. It's crazy to know that during the day he went and he slit their throats open and then proceeded to allegedly go to a gas station where they did see him on camera, and you see him getting arrested. He left a lot of blood in a hotel. He was in a hotel. But Nick was also known to leave the house and being homeless at times. You have all this money and this wealth, and, the fact that you're homeless and you're on drugs and you're suffering, it says a lot. And again, I don't ever blame the parents, because people become addicted to these narcotics, to these drugs, and there's nothing that you're gonna be able to do. There's not enough an amount of tough love that you can give to try to help your child, friend, etc., whatever it is, until they're actually ready. And, Nick went on a podcast, the Dopey Show, and he said, I had a cocaine heart attack. I was on so many uppers. I was on so much cocaine. I was on so much drugs. And he still went ahead and still doing it. And most people, when they get to that level, that's their kind of little light bulb that says, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore because I almost lost my life. But the addict in him, having those cravings, still pushes him. And again, we still don't know about the mental part of it. It's still all coming out. So once we actually see more of the picture, we can have more of an idea of what led up to this point. I'm devastated. There was just so much more that, Rob Reiner still had to go and do. So, and on top of it, we lost Abraham Quintanilla also within the week. Chris Perez's dad actually ended up dying the day after Abraham Quintanilla passed away. So they're going through it. And that what they say, it's all in threes. But it was a hard week, guys, and, I pray and hope that the family can get through this with not so much controversy. And we're going to wrap it up there. That 30 minutes goes so fast. I'm glad that I was able to touch up on this topic, though, today, because I really, really, really always feel like there's a reason for everything, and there's times to speak about stuff. And I always encourage people to, even though it sounds crazy to other people, and if you have a dream, if you're inspired to do something, keep pushing. Don't give up. Keep pushing. Make that dream happen. Listen to people. Listen to yourself. If, it's not their dream, it's yours. And then, if you have a friend out there that's depressed, try and touch in with that friends. People have so much going on every single day, but it takes 2 seconds just to be like, hey, happy Monday. Hey, I hope you have a great weekend. Okay. All right, guys. Well, by the time we get back, Christmas will be over, but we'll be able to discuss that. And I'm not even going to give you a topic because I don't even know what's going to be. I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. I hope and pray that everybody gets what they want. And if they don't, that's okay. There's always next year. All right. Love you guys so much. I hope you guys have, again, a phenomenal Christmas, and we'll see you back next week. Bye.